Both Gog and E.H. shared life's lessons in a way that we grandchildren could readily understand and accept. Just a few things I remember. E.H. once ran for a Harris County commissioner spot and lost. But later he said, losing that race to squatted lions is one of the best things that ever happened. That man is really a good commissioner. He was also known to say, I like to visit another fellow's place. He might know a better way to hang a gate. Think about that. Gaga was once wisely and lovingly told me as a teenager with hurt feelings regarding a rumor started about me, honey, always consider the source. It took me a while, years in fact, to realize that no matter the type of information I receive, it's always good to consider the source. I've been sort of a neatnik and a clean freak. E.H. once told me as a young mother of 3 little ones, sweet potato, you don't want to always have everything spick and span neat, because then your house won't look or feel lived in. I learned history and patriotism from these wonderful grandparents. There's an old saying, you can't fight City Hall. Well, in a sense, Gog and E.H. did. I was somewhere around 8 years old at the time. It was not openly discussed in my presence, and I could hardly believe what I'd overheard. My grandparents were thinking about suing our country, the United States of America. How could they? I was ashamed, and I quietly shed tears. And the more I thought about it, the more fearful for them I became. My childish mind went wild with what might happen to them if they did such a thing. Well, thankfully, I soon got my first civics lesson. I found out that they knew something I didn't, and that was, in this country, we have the privilege, the right, and the responsibility to stand up in the proper way for what we believe in and what we feel is right. When the first portion of 134 acres of LH7 land was condemned for flood control purposes to keep the floodwaters out of Houston regarding Buffalo Bayou, E.H. probably flinched. But he complied. When an additional 323.7 acres of the ranch were condemned for the same purpose, and yet again he was not offered what he considered a fair price, E.H. bought. Besides losing, importantly, contiguous ranch land, E.H. and Gaga were also to lose the Rodeo Grounds, the rodeo arena with huge grandstands on each side, the tall judges' stand over the bucking chutes and calf roping set up off to the side, the huge covered and enclosed drink stand, the enormous barbecue pit that one year cooked up to 6,300 pounds of LH7 branded beef, and the tall tables where people stood to eat their wonderful barbecue dinners, in the ambiance and the shade of the huge native pecan trees with grapevines crawling up through the branches. E.H. determined the Corps of Engineers, or whatever entity appraised his property, did not put an acceptable value on it. I'm sure he considered it to be near irreplaceable, and it did turn out to be so. In a sense, it had been the opportunity of a lifetime. It is recorded that in 1937, 7,000 Houston area residents paid to see 200 cowboys perform. And regarding the same, a Houston newspaper reported the sponsors ran out of barbecue and cold drinks. Two vivid memories I still have are of the all-night cooking of the meat, the barbecue for Sunday barbecue dinner, and the pungent smell of all those sliced onions. And then I get a little teary as I see a mental picture of them driving a herd of EH's Texas Longhorns through the arena for a picturesque and a nostalgic view of his earlier days and Texas history. This herd was just part of a herd that he had put together and also produced, which was known at that time as the largest privately owned herd of Texas Longhorns in the world. The LH7 was allowed to lease back confiscated land as pasture land, but I understand nothing like a production of his annual rodeos and barbecues and charging admission for them was allowed on what was considered then and now government property. In 1950, the LH7 had hosted its last first Saturday and Sunday in May events. In the end, I cannot say Gawk and EH were well or fairly compensated, but they were better compensated than in the original offer, and they did get their day in court. Life was different then, but it did go on. As an adult, I've often thought they were able to go on by pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps. As I was thinking about sharing this, I was curious, so I looked that saying up. And I read, bootstrapping has proved to be an effective method to build a company with minimal funds from investors, but it isn't for everyone. And then stated also, as they say, necessity is the mother of innovation. And when you have your own money and resources on the line, you are forced to invent, reinvent, and innovate. I think Gawk and EH figured out this bootstrapping, worked hard, did a little innovating, and came out pretty close to the top again. These are just a few life's lessons and truths I've learned from them. I have felt privileged to use these gems, and then I felt responsible to pass them on now to my children, to my grandchildren, and even some great-grands and others.